to October the 26th. 26 of 2021. Hi everyone, I'm Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the nuclearproctologist.org. Glad you can join us. 709-589-4406. All the lines are free at the moment. They won't stay like that forever. Call in. You gotta get some creepy songs because we're talking about nuclear. Some creepy background music. Because, hey, it's nuclear, so what are you gonna do, right? Remember, John Kretchen was gonna secretively with Japan, we're trying to set up something to ship all their nuclear waste to Labrador, Newfoundland, where I'm to. Guess what? They're opening up a uranium mine. And if anybody knows anything about uranium mines, they're extremely carbon intensive and dirty. These ponds, we'll see if they get their way in Labrador, are chemical ponds. And that's evaporated into the environment to poison all the species. You can't drink the water anywhere around uranium mines. There's 15,000 abandoned uranium mines. And think about your dirty, despicable uranium. 3 million children require treatment, permanent treatment. Many will die prematurely. Is it really worth producing that stuff to slaughter our planet? How about if your uranium turns hundreds of communities into ghost towns and people run away and leave their pets to starve to death? Was that worth your investment in uranium? 46% of Japan election candidates called for the future break from nuclear power. They're not getting elected. These radiation dosimeters, they only, if at all, record in gamma. They don't record alpha or beta or neutrons. Not only that, you can't actually read them. There is a website that you can try. And this is not on-site monitoring. This is not real-time doses. This can't replace the Geiger counter I have up there in the corner. That's real-time. You don't got to go looking for an internet to figure it out. No Fukushima strawberries, thank you. Korean environmental groups criticize the Japanese Prime Minister. The Japanese Prime Minister was trying to promote Fukushima food by eating strawberries from the nuclear wasteland, he claims. And of course, I done a video last week showing that he never even went to Fukushima. It was actually photoshopped. He never went to the Fukushima nuclear meltdowns. So it's probably not Fukushima strawberries either, is the takeaway from that. RTE sees a massive thermal output needs without nuclear. 6 different scenarios for France to reach carbon neutrality. This carbon neutrality is meant to promote nuclear. That's all that's about. We got a poll tonight if you're interested in doing polls. Should nuclear students work at Fukushima nuclear meltdowns for 2 months before they can graduate? 94% says yes. 6%, probably students, said no. They don't want, that 6% knows they'll die if they work there ultimately. If they wander into the wrong spot at Fukushima, like close to the reactors, that's a goner. 16 votes. We're off to a great start. 13 people on the show that we've been doing for almost a decade. I worked hard for those 13 viewers, buddy. Quite proud of myself. Bruce Power, which is Canada, launches Bruce Power Net Zero Incorporation. Bruce Power Net Zero. 100% public relation move. This is not about being carbon free, otherwise you get out of nuclear right away. It's disgusting. And Bruce Power is the king of disgusting here in Canada. They actually excel in being disgusting. Nuclear Waste Management Organization in Canada is the people that created the waste in the first place are in charge of getting rid of it. Let's dig a big hole in the farming community. That's their solution. And Ignace signs a memorandum of understanding. I was in there a couple of years ago in Ignace. Collaborating with communities is a critical component of Canada's plan to our success, says Laurie Scumbag, the CEO of the... First off, Canada's plan will only proceed in an area with informed and willing hosts. And Ignace got a population of around 1,200 people. They don't know nothing about nuclear. All about what's in it for me. Will only proceed in an area with informed and willing hosts. They're not trying to come up with a solution for nuclear waste. They're just going around to all the communities that are going to say no to them and then spend money there and have a good time and party and do a bunch of crack cocaine in the hotels. It's an unbelievable scumbag industry. It's unbelievable. I don't understand why they got to be such scumbags. Fear about China's new space weapon echoes worries about war from space. Why is China... Like, if China's going to attack you, it could do it from space, or do it from land, or do it from a submarine, or do it from a ship with a nuclear weapon we're talking about, right? What do you need to do it in space? Well, we're going to get you back. If you nuke us, we're getting you. We'll destroy the planet. We'll get you. This is the nuclear industry about just spending a few more dollars and getting rid of precious resources by lobbying up into space. All the precious metals on the planet are being irradiated by this incredibly coward industry. The nuclear challenge beyond. We've never had a pro-nuclear call into the show. That'll tell you everything you need to know. The nuclear challenge and beyond. China has around 300 nuke-tart bombs. India has around 150 nuke-tart weapons. And Americans and Russia have only 6,000 each now. America used to have 55,000. Yeah? The fear-mongering was strong back in those days, I tell you what. And so all these little dots were where they had missiles, silos, in communities. Using communities as human shields. So if Russia had a shot at any of these spots, the president will be on TV. They're attacking our little farming community. We're going to stand by, let them do that, or we're going to hit those rusky backs with nuclear weapons. And these are all hemorrhaging radiation into the environment, by the way. Duke Energy CEO, net zero emissions can't be achieved without nuclear power. You just can't do it. Well, nuclear is not carbon free. You've need an oil and gas or coal plant, 2 of them, just to run the nuclear site and the pumps and the reactors and everything else, because they don't run on their own energy. They use all the precious metal on the planet. They boil off 1 million gallons a minute per reactor. No site has a single reactor. There's multiple reactors. And a glass of water is 1 billion creatures. 75 to 100 million of those are the phytoplankton. You know, the bases of the food chain and the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain. So you got 16 million times 1 billion creatures for each reactor boiling off into the environment. It's absurd to call it carbon free. This is some weird, twisted agenda from a death cult in a secret society. known as the coward nuclear industry. One new nuclear plant has come online in the U.S. in the last 25 years. That's a nuclear renaissance, I tell you what. America's got a nuclear renaissance now. They got a new reactor since 3 Mile Island. It took them 40 years to get Watts Bar online. They ran out of precious metals, I guess. Australia to keep an eye on nuclear power. This is absurd. Australia's not keeping an eye on nuclear power. The hawks in the politics are. We will monitor emerging technology in the early stages of development, like small modular reactors. So they're not going to look at compressed air storage or pumped hydro storage. They ain't going to put a nickel into that. Somewhere in the future, there could be small modular reactors. We're going to be watching, and we're having one. What's going to be like? We don't know. They ain't developed one yet. What's the issue? We don't know. They ain't developed one yet. Why not look at developing technology for storage, for solar and wind and tidal power? Australia is full of empty land on top of that. Why South Korea shouldn't build its own nuclear bombs? Like, first off, you can't use them, morons. And in order to build a bomb, you have to radiate your country and your oceans and all the fresh water and all the species. I'm not kidding you. That's a fact. Outlook on genocide. There's no such thing as radiotherapy or radiopharmaceutical or nuclear medicine. There's murder, and more murder. That's what that is. Ontario provincial government harvests murderous medical isotopes. So, like, these people that are being irradiated, when they after they get this heavy radiation, for instance, they have special toilets they have to use because their urine excrements are radioactive. Yeah? And when they die, they don't want to incinerate them because you'll make the incinerator radioactive. And Australia's dump is supposed to be for medical isotopes, a deep geological repository to get it away from humans for 1 million years. But we're going to put it in you first. That's such a crime. That's such a genocide machine, this medical isotope. It's despicable. It's unbelievably, hideously, odiously, monstrously despicable, coward industry. U.S. Air Force confirms site for first micro-reactor. That's a fancy way of talking about small modular reactors, Dana. They can confirm all they want. They ain't got one. For some reason. How come? 75 years and they still ain't got one. Not only that, they're over $3 million each. It's $3 billion each. It's $10 billion to build a big plant. It's $30 billion if you don't have overruns to build the same amount of energy for small modular reactors. Total pansy scheme. And by the time they might get developed, we can have solar, wind, and all kinds of other renewable geothermal from the earth, tidal power, all kinds of other incredible innovative energies matured. They're not going to spend a nickel on it. They'll put all the money in a big pile and wait till somebody figures out how to build small modular reactors. This is called Stockholm Syndrome for the whole planet. South Bruce, Ontario citizens push for a referendum. Yeah, and how long is the referendum good for is the only problem, because they're so tricky, right? To decide location of nuclear waste. Again, what you see is this is the industry created the waste. And Michelle Stein, who's really done an outstanding job of fighting back, is putting up signs around her community she hopes will lead to a referendum. See, South Bruce, these little communities all the weight of the entire country is put on the shoulders of a little community who knows nothing about nuclear. And resistance has to pop up. There's no established resistance there that knows the ins and outs of nuclear. So Stein had to show up, figure it out, and then dedicate a large chunk of her life to trying to awaken the public to an extremely complicated topic with no other influences. There's no universities going to help her. There's no institutions going to help her. Greenpeace is not going to show up and help her. The whole industry is doing everything they can to sabotage what she's trying to do. It shouldn't be no referendum because it shouldn't be there. It's a farming community on top of that, and they want the farmers to keep farming while they're burying the nuclear waste. All of it's vented, so the farms will suck up the radiation. The whole story is insane. They're not trying to come up with a solution. They're trying to come up with communities that is going to have a fight and they end up walking away from, and it never happens. The fuel is still splitting the atom. It's still hemorrhaging radiation into the environment with no containment whatsoever. And they know it. The industry knows it. It's a horrific, incredible betrayal. But she's approaching it in a diplomatic way. People that see benefits from the project can vote yes, and those of us that feel the risks are too great, we get to vote no. But see, all they do is they seed the community with yes votes by buying, by doing, and they have been doing dropping huge amounts of money in the community. Michelle Stein can't go out and drop millions of dollars into the community to win favors and votes. Not only that, it has no right to be in a community. It's radioactive waste. Why would you put it in a community? What kind of monster thought that was a good idea? What kind of moron in the industry said, hey, let's find a little community where people don't know any better and let's store it there. They'll fight us to the death and it'll never get stored. We don't have to spend the money, and we can spend the interest on the $25 billion they got sitting there. It's the industry. If they wanted a solution, they would have come up with a solution when they made it originally. If Biden's serious about climate crisis, he should put nuclear power on the table. But you see all this, right? The media constantly plugging nuclear from every direction. But they won't interview me. They won't regurgitate the truth. They won't interview authentic people. They only interview controlled opposition and the industry itself. And the industry is going to regurgitate 75-year propaganda. Part of the cost will end up being footed by the consumers. All of it is. They jack the shit out of the bills. We urgently need a new approach to attract British funds and other private investors to back new large-scale nuclear power stations in the United Kingdom. We urgently need a new approach to attract the British funds and private investors. You don't see any of them saying, this is going to poison your local community. Why not put it somewhere where there's not people being poisoned? How did that become? Why is it always going in a community and the poison people? That's what you need to ask yourself. Then you start realizing what's really going on. They don't want a solution. They wanted a solution to get all the universities in the country to have a contest, and you come up with a solution right away. Horrifying ESCOM fears, this is South Africa. The skilled workers are ditching South Africa's nuclear plant. Is a nuclear nightmare on the cards for South Africa? The infamous Kohlberg plant is losing its senior technicians, sparking panic at ESCOM, which owns it. What was alarming for me is that these experts were happy to resign with no other offers on the table. They didn't even have a job to go to, and they were dropping out of a... So that nuclear site must be heavily contaminated. When the nuclear industry abandons a nuclear site, there's something else going on you should be asking yourself. France repairs a nuclear sub ravaged by a fire. They don't even know what caused the fire today. They're going to send it back out. Try making that one up on your own. The atom, it was French. What's there's no big surprise. They're just moron. It's a moron industry. The Atom Jacks bring their nuclear power surf sound to the Prince Albert. The Atom Jacks, it obviously is the name of a band. And then they're trying to do a play on words. Their nuclear power surf sound. So they sound like what? Beach Boys or something? To the Prince Albert. First off, what the hell is going through your mind naming your band the Atom Jacks? And second off, writing an article and calling it nuclear power. Nuclear power is a genocide machine. Do these look like genocide machines? Nuclear energy. Possible answer to net zero for Australia. So you see in Sky News just gone lucid or gone crazy on for nuclear. I mean, we've covered them year after year after year. Hang on, here we go. EU Council, the European Union must use nuclear power to ensure its energy independence. Because nuclear, like, what's really going on is pretty obvious, is that alternative renewable energies are able to displace permanently almost all other common energy sources. And because you have compressed air storage, you just dig big mine shafts and extra energy, you compress air down there. So you don't even need an ocean or rivers anymore to store energy. And you can have pumped hydro. Also, you can have both, which means you got weeks of stored energy. So if you've got no wind and no sunshine for a couple of weeks, you're still fine. So they need to get a commitment now before the technology, because it's advancing, doubling capacities every 16, 18 months. Right? And so if they can get commitment now and grab the money now, the nuclear industry, then they can live a bit longer, so to speak. They've got no right to exist. Their entire legacy is predicated upon murder and genocide. It's just despicable, coward media is just the art of war. Billions of euros to innovate the nuclear NATO. This week, NATO is investing an additional €1 billion to finance U.S. military research. It should make you vomit after reading that. You should lose all faith in that organization as soon as you read that. My apologies. Russia summons German military attaché over comments on nuclear deterrence. Gee, I can't even remember what the stories, but all of a sudden. They handed a protest note to a German military attaché due to the German defense minister's comments over need to deter Russia's nuclear capabilities. To deter Russia's nuclear... Well, that's the whole problem, right? He gets a big stick, he wants a bigger one, then he needs a bigger one, then he feels he needs a bigger one, then this side needs a bomb, this one needs a plane to carry it, this one needs a satellite to shoot him from the space, this one needs a self-destruct button. It's like, when you step back and look at this nuclear weapon thing, it's basically a bunch of children with endless money thrown at them, and they wear military suits, and they're about as mature as a 6-year-old at best. Like a 6-year-old dog, not a child, because that would actually be mature. And they have all this money, they feel like they have all this power, They're sucked into this industry because they have a certain personality. And you can't talk reason to these people. They're natural born idiots. House Subcommittee on Energy holds a hearing on spending at Department of Energy's, which is the military machine anyway, of the nuclear energy, with Amy, what's her name, testifying. Now, what she's testifying basically is that the benefits of nuclear power include the death of all people on the planet, all species. They're just perpetual liars, yeah? All they're going to do is regurgitate the same lies that we've been listening to now for 75 years. You can chase their narrative today is the same narrative for the last 75 years. So there's no innovation in nuclear. It's just the same old, right? New finance model to spur next nuclear power plant builds in the United Kingdom. That crane there is the biggest one in the world, by the way. And every precious metal on the planet, it has to be, everything they use on a nuclear, look at all the cranes in the background. Everything they use at a nuclear site has to be inspected 4 times. It has to meet all the qualifications of stuff you're going to send to a different solar system. It claims consumers will save more than $30 billion on new large-scale nuclear stations if they pay for it now out of their pockets. So there's no risk to the nuclear industry. They jack up your bills, and then you have a set price for the rest of your life to get the rest of the money back. For they didn't even pay for it in the first place. You paid for it. Increasing the pool of private, they're gone nuts. Now they're no longer anybody in control because nuclear is dying and not quick enough. We should help it the best we can. Increasing the pool of private investors like British pension funds. Increasing the pool of private investors. Taking the British pension and investing it in nuclear. You revolting, despicable scum. You despicable scum. You revolting scumbags. You despicable, horrific scumbags to do something like that. You disgusting monsters to do something like that. You're just revolting. It's unbelievable. Kenya says nuclear power should be postponed, because they're not going to be ready till 2037 at the earliest. But Kenya is completely impoverished. New museum host in person. This is disgusting, from Albuquerque. And this is KRQE, who took one of my videos when the whip melted down. Had major releases. We had the documentation. I'd done a presentation on it. And KRQE took a little clip, put it on TV, and demonized me. I was 100% accurate in what I was saying. Nuclear Museum hosts in-person single day cabs. Spooky signs for members. They actually have a daycare for children at the Nuclear Museum in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That tells you how incredibly hideous these monsters actually are. Terrestrial Energy awards major component design contract to BWXT Canada for the use in integral molten salt reactors. You know, like Santa Susana. Yeah? That melted down. It's still melting down. It was 460 times worse. Every molten salt reactor that he built so far is melted down. And you can't decommission a molten salt reactor. You've introduced water or oxygen into it, it'll detonate. Wrap your mind around that. Energy Department announces $20 million for nuclear hydrogen production. The nuclear industry can't even get toilet paper for $20 million. They can't even go out and buy donuts and coffee for their boss with $20 million. way too incompetent. What are they going to do with $20 million? It's like an insult to them. Rising seas, and by the way, nuclear hydrogen is unbelievably carbon intensive. So nuclear is going to have to jack up the coal, oil, and gas plants to put out any production. Rising seas and nuclear waste, the Marshallese, over a million square kilometers of the Marshallese and around it is radioactive from their nuclear bombs. Over 1 million square kilometers. And they got that country, these people tortured from day one that they showed up. The Marshall Islands resemble a breathtaking collection of tiny specks in the middle of the Pacific. And while they are seemingly pristine islands, they took the oases, the incredible, unbelievable, magical islands in the Pacific and the Atlantic, and they nuked the living crap out of it for 1 million years. They took all the oases, the beautiful, incredible magic, actual magic these places are, and they destroyed it with radiation, the nuclear industry. Like, there's not a single legacy or part of the history of nuclear to be proud of. It's every facet of it is humiliatingly reckless and destructive and with bad intentions on top of that. U.S. releases latest nuclear weapons count as Moscow and NATO ties collapse. As Moscow and NATO ties collapse. It's always collapsed. NATO is like UN, right? It's an organization created after Hiroshima and Nagasaki because of nuclear to be an instrument of the military-industrial complex, the weapons production facility, because the weapons production facility sells the weapons to both sides of the war. They're always hid away in the background. They're the main drivers of all the wars, right? Russia and U.S. release latest nuclear weapons count. Whoopee! You can't even use them. We live in a 6,000-foot underground nuclear bunker. Really? How's the view down there? Speaking of morons, how's the view down there, moron? Incumbent favoring nuclear waste disposal facility wins Hokkaido mayoral elections. Incumbent favoring a nuclear waste disposal facility magically wins the race in a place where the industry wants to have a nuclear waste dump. My goodness, what's the odds? America threatens China with nuclear strike over Taiwan. This is absurd to even suggest that's true. 100% unmitigated fear-mongering. Nobody's striking nobody with nuclear weapons. You can't do it. China's like, we don't have no first strike policy. Nobody does. You're not going to do it. You can't spend your checks if you have a nuclear war. You can't spend all the money you stole from everybody for 75 years if you have a nuclear war. You can't have parties. Can't drive your fancy cars if you have a nuclear war. You're not going to have it. Nuclear medicine market is likely to register double digits during 2023. Because Fukushima is shipping food now that the Americans have dropped any kind of restrictions on 14 prefectures of poisoned food from Japan, and the EU, and now Norway and Iceland are going to probably do it. They know that people are going to get poisoned silly, and so then they're going to finish them off with what they call nuclear medicine. That's murder. If you took the nuclear medicine they're talking about and tried to stick it in them, they'd claw your eyes right out of your head. They literally would pull your ears right off your head. Screaming, no! Please! if you try to inject them with the same stuff they're going to inject you and your loved ones with. I got millions of dollars stashed away. I'll give it to you. Please don't put it in me. Department of Energy announces $14.5 million supporting digital air capture and storage coupled to low carbon energy sources. So if we keep doing that, we'll have no plants left on the friggin' planet. Abu Dhabi launches international strategy test to test emergency responses to Barakah nuclear plant. Why don't you just do what the Americans do and put sirens up to 10 miles away, but you're never going to use them. If all the releases, you have a major meltdown, you're still not going to use those sirens. Because activists put them there, right? There ain't no activists in Abu Dhabi, I can guarantee you. 2-day advanced simulation will involve participation of the International Assistance Team. International Assistance Team in case you have a nuclear meltdown. It gets stupider by the day, this industry. The drill, Convex 3, is being organized by the International Atomic Energy Agency, which promotes the peaceful use of nuclear energy. That's why they don't go to Fukushima, right? Chinese influencers' Chernobyl photos raise controversy because they're saying she never wear protective clothing. Why didn't she wear a protective suit? First off, paper suits can't protect you from radiation. Unless it's 4 feet thick or something. Well, it's paper, so 5 feet thick. At least there's people saying she's stupid for going there, and she is. She's not allowed to touch anything. Behavior should not be encouraged as it may mislead many to believe that the area is safe now. And our tour guide told us that we needed to cover our ankles with long pants as the radiation on the ground is much higher than in the air, which is really high, by the way. So it'd be quite dangerous to accidentally touch something when walking by. Sign me up. I want to go too. Sounds like paradise. Says nobody. Geological disposal of radioactive waste. The inventory for disposal. This is United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom. They spent 3 decades dumping it in the ocean for starters. Sellafield, which is still reprocessing spent fuel in the mixed oxide fuel, and just had a fire there last weekend, or this past weekend, that they still haven't released any details on, has 8 million liters a day going into the ocean that they're not even trying to capture and store. So you really think Fukushima's capturing it and storing it? Introducing nuclear energy in Australia will be extremely expensive. Australia doesn't care. They're just going to rob everybody of their futures. Stop building schools and universities and hospitals and build nuclear is what the solution is, right? Military correspondent, Israel cannot destroy Iranian nuclear know-how. They got 8 million soldiers in Iran. Israel attacks them. They're not getting away with it. I can guarantee you. And they got 49 American military / Israeli military bases on Iran's borders for decades. Land, sea, and air embargo. It's like putting a grizzly bear in a wooden crate and keep poking with a stick until it finally comes out and murders you. Opinion, 60 years later, we still learn from the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was all staged to promote nuclear. Federal officers conduct nuclear response training in NCFL. This is the FBI, fear-mongering FBI training exercise. in Jacksonville will be conducting a scheduled training exercise in north central Florida to practice responding to a potential nuclear detonation in the U.S. or overseas. Which, surprising, they didn't respond to Fukushima. As part of the exercise, people may see military vehicles on roadways, low-flying helicopters. I forgot to go over, and because every time the stream starts, I got to go back in. Hang on. Whenever my stream starts, I'm supposed to come in here, but I don't always remember to do it. And I got to come in here, and I got to check the box, allow embedding, so people can post my video on their website, otherwise it won't show up. Every single time. So we got a poll, 32 votes. Should nuclear students work at Fukushima nuclear meltdowns for 2 months before they can graduate? So if we did do that, then we wouldn't have to worry about nuclear anymore because we would kill all the students that work there, right? It's a win-win, you ask me. They go in and instead of the homeless, and they can actually do some work because they're nuclear students, and we don't need any nuclear students. So you get the crazies, you say, come on to universities, we'll teach you to be nuclear, and anything that shows up, send them to Fukushima and get rid of them. Probably one of the best ideas I've ever come up with. You're telling me that's not a great idea? And 2 nuclear students said no. Look at that. Wow. Out of 33 votes, 88%, which is surprising. 88%. Or to be born on crazy lunatic mountain. Nuclear is global warming. That's the plume from Fukushima covering the Pacific Ocean, America, Canada, Iceland, Greenland, Europe, the Atlantic Ocean, the entire northern southern hemisphere in just 2 weeks. This is March the 20th model. So it destroys all the insects, all the bacteria in the forest, the phytoplankton in the ocean, and works its way up from there, right? You expect to see birds and whales and mammals and animals start showing up emaciated because their body has so much radiation they can't uptake nutrition anymore. Nuclear energy issue divides the EU. No, nuclear industry divides the EU. That's how that should be. Mission Zero. Why Australia needs to ask the nuclear question. Mission Zero. Why Earth needs to get rid of nuclear. Ignace agrees to work with the New World Order on future waste site. There's the mayor of 1,200 people. Get your picture taken, you know, a useful idiot for the nuclear industry. Nuclear Waste Management Organization. It would store Canada's used nuclear fuel roughly 500 meters, 1,500 feet underground. Agreement shows we have accomplished a great deal in our engagement with the mayor of a community of 1,200 people in the middle of nowhere. That's a real accomplishment, that was. You went to an impoverished community, threw around a lot of money, and the mayor got her picture taken with you. Wow! I swear to God that Ignace, if they take the nuclear waste, then a couple of people got a lot of money and they destroyed all of Canada. Send it 1,000 miles north where there's no communities, where it's totally stable, where there's no ocean, there's no way for that to end up into your fresh water supplies, and dig your hole in the ground. And then when you get all the nuclear waste there, crawl in there with it and lock it. Do the world a favor. Crawl in there and lock it. New delay for Georgia nuclear reactors cost mounts. In other words, delayed again. How many times is that? 11, 12 times? How far behind schedule is that? 7 years or something? 8 years? Go eat your food from Japan. Look at that. It's not just Fukushima. It's all of these prefectures. Were banned in 55 countries. Because they're lunatics. They're growing food right alongside the nuclear waste. Not even trying to hide it. This is actually pictures from newspapers. Saying, you shouldn't pick on the farmer. His food is not radioactive. But it's grown right by the bags and harvesting it right alongside the bags, moron. But that's what the media was doing. Radioactive fallout from 75 years is global warming. The acceleration was Fukushima. It was unprecedented event. Multiple fuel pools melting down at the same time. We never seen nothing like it, right? We never heard tell or seen nothing like it. So tonight's show, what I done was, all we done was basically ran mostly through the headlines. Basically ran just through the headlines. 56 headlines, roughly. And just told a story, right? Instead of going detail after detail after detail after detail, minutiae of the minutiae of the minutiae. And the reason being was I was reading all these stories, and sometimes I get into that mode because there's net zero and climate change and carbon free, right? And it's over and over and over in every single story, and you're like you get. Because I'm doing this all day, every day, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And there's just climate change, carbon-free, net zero, climate change, carbon-free, net zero, climate change, carbon-free, net zero, carbon, all day long, all night long, all day long, all day, every day, carbon-free, climate change. I couldn't do it today. I couldn't highlight it all and do it to you. Give you a little break and just do the headlines and say, piece of shit for each story, and then have a nice night, right? Because sometimes that's just the way it is. Sometimes that's the way it is. I'm going to close that poll down. Should nuclear students work at Fukushima nuclear meltdown for 2 months before they can graduate? Yes, 89%, 11% no. That's awesome. I always find it amazing that there's somebody out there will vote in favor of the nuclear industry in these polls. I think that's one of the most amazing things is there's actually somebody out there in real life that's actually creepy enough to vote on the polls in favor of the nuclear. I find it incredibly creepy that the nuclear industry would hang out on my shows. Because we've caught them many, many times, right? That's the nuclear industry for you. Oh la la. Okay, well, I'm going to end that poll right there. And last 5 or 6 shows been really, really long shows. And tonight's not going to be one of them. We're still waiting for the other parts to come in for the gimbal. And the weather's been bad for the last week, unfortunately. And gas prices have gone to the roof. I don't know about in your area, but down here they're insane. $1.60 a liter. Never seen the likes of that before. It just kept going up for the last month or so. I still need... well, I have like 1,000 headlines that I got to get through. We got to raise money. We raised... haven't been trying, right? And it was a bad year because we had our main site was taken down on August the 3rd, I think it was, or August the 2nd. So like 10 weeks ago, I guess. And with 24,000 subscribers and 1,600 videos. And so I have to rebuild my site and the base and everything. And we were out on expeditions this year. And again, that really hurt us big time, right? We had a lot of breakdowns this year to deal with. A lot of equipment breaking. And I got to go buy more cables for charging equipment and stuff like that. Is given out on in the last couple of weeks. I got a list I'm going to do tomorrow. See how many I can find locally, and the rest I'll get off Amazon, I guess. And I'm avoiding doing anything because I wanted to get back out. We had birds blowing up on the coastline. It's just heavy winds and rains, and I don't raise enough money to do everything, unfortunately, right? I have to make decisions. And so we've done it at Gimbal now for several years, and I decided, first off, it takes a long time to learn to use some of this equipment. And you have to get the extra pieces to go with it. So you get the first piece. Most of the gear I got, that's how it was done. You buy the most expensive stuff. Then you start buying all the parts to build it, right? And eventually you put it all together and you got something that'll last you for a lot of years. But this is an extinction event. Fukushima is an extinction event. And the industry has me kettled in really bad. And so it's, I can do these shows, right? So at least I can do something. That's not enough. There's so many things. We don't have anybody else doing the work, so I need to do as much as I can to fill in the gaps, is how I feel all the time. So good night, everybody. Colette, Dana Nasana, Port Angeles, I only serve one king. Shane, good night, everybody. James, Mangan, Mutant Botanical, Ted Richards. Lots of people there tonight. Awesome. Hi, everybody. And I don't get many views. I don't have many people on my live shows. I'm censored on that end, like heavily censored. It's incredible what they're doing to me on YouTube. I'm going to do a short video on all the ways they're censoring me. It's really shocking. James Olhan. Hi, James. Good night, everybody. Nice, easy show tonight. And I noticed last night I missed 3 or 4 names last night on the show. I'm trying to slow it down. Because what happens is I scroll down from the top of names to the most recent comments. And I'm talking usually at the same time. And somehow or another, I always seem to manage to miss 2 or 3 people when I'm doing it. Every single time, too, I noticed that. Because I read the comments after. And James Lucid. Hi, James. Shayla White. Hi, Shayla. Hi, everybody. Kevin Morgan. UK is being just bum rushed on petrol prices. $1.98. I guess USD in United Kingdom per liter. Absurd, eh? Because this is all about pushing nuclear power, right? Ella, see, I missed Ella. I didn't see her name there. And Nerad Yelov, I didn't see their name there. Amazing, isn't it? Chad, I didn't see Chad. I'm just going back up through the names. So that's 3 names there I didn't see, for goodness sakes. I don't know, man. Looks good. Just double checking there. And Victor. Thanks, Victor. Yeah, hugs for everybody. Now, tomorrow night, because I ran through 56 headlines tonight, too quick, I'll have a lot more tomorrow night. Because I got 1,000 to catch up on. All the headlines tonight were today's story, the last 24 hours. And we probably got every one of them that were relevant. That I could find out there. Can I do part of a video on the USS Ronald Reagan? Yeah, I can so. It was 1 mile away from the nuclear meltdowns. I got a bunch of headlines actually on the US Ronald Reagan. I'll throw that up there for tomorrow night. Good night, everyone. Hugs for everyone. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Have a great night and great day tomorrow. We'll see everybody in 24. Take care.